Peace. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you guys back to another edition of the Foul Playland. As always, I am your foul player. Very humbled by those who come here to check me out. As always, like I said, it's a miracle that anybody comes to peep the kid. But while you're here peeping me, and if you peep this after the fact, I want to thank you for coming through. I hope you guys, if you do celebrate Christmas, have gotten your Christmas shit out of the way. I'm about that. Michael Jackson, Boston Talk, and more. And subscribe to my boy. Thank you for coming through though. But I hope you guys got all your Christmas shit out of the way, and if you do go to these Christmas parties, don't get into brawls and arguments with your fams and whatnot. I haven't done that many times in my life, but I have done that. It's not worth it. But and I hope you guys ain't losing your scalps trying to buy gifts. Especially for kids. Most times kids don't give two shits when you buy them, when they're below 6 and shit. Give your kids some $40 gifts tops, and don't lose your scalp trying to take fake ass pictures to your friends and family on Instagram because you bought them a overvalued, PS5 or some shit. But I hope you guys are doing well. Nevertheless, and I want to talk about the big subject at hand. If you guys don't know, late last night, might have been early yesterday. Early today, there was the announcement of Dennis Ugas being awarded the Errol Spence fight. More power to Dennis Ugas. I don't want to diss him too hard. I know I have dissed him in the past, and I still say the same shit that I've said in the past about him, in that I don't really know who he is. Kind of got to Google how he looks at times. He's not like a character like that. Not that like not to say that fights without characters aren't interesting, but not much accomplished. I mean, if I remember correctly, I know he got beat by Amir Iman, but he ended up getting that belt or the chance at that belt against Abel Ramos for a vacancy. I'm not going to take away anything regarding the Pacquiao victory, because I think a lot of people were trying to go at Pacquiao's scalp, just because of the monetary benefit of it, and because Pacquiao has been in the decline. But he was one of the guys from the next generation to do it. Does that give him more acclaim? I mean, a little bit, but at the end of the day, like, his biggest fight was losing to Porter, and that was a freebie on Fox. Nobody watched that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think what happens like with Ugas, like, I mean, if he beats one of these guys, if he beats Porter, let's say, in addition to beating Pacquiao, I mean, like, maybe that wouldn't even make him like a big factor like that. I mean, to me, he's just not like somebody I stop my weekend like to watch them fight. And I've always retained that, not since this announcement's been made, like that Errol Spence and him are gonna shake it up for a unification bout. Do I think that unification bouts are important? Absolutely. I think that the unification of this division at welterweight has taken far too long, and it's lost a little bit of its pizzazz, if you will, because it's being used as an excuse to not do the most important fight in the division, which is Terrence Crawford against Errol Spence. Whether that's to unify the entire division or whether that's for one belt apiece, that's been the most important fight, or one of the most important fights in boxing for what, 6 years, maybe more. It was always the fantasy match that people talked about. And if you wouldn't believe it, within 6 years, we've waited all this time. We're not like any bit closer to this fight. And we might be waiting an additional year, if at all. I've been saying, nothing has taken the tide from what I've said in the past. Like, nothing has stemmed the tide, if you will, like, of what I've said in the past, or what I claimed in the past, that we're not going to get Errol Spence versus Bud Crawford ever. People are always telling me, oh, well, next year it's because of this or that. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Do I think that Bud is blameless in all this? No, I don't think Bud is blameless. I've always said that. I think if Bud had an option to sign with any other promotional company outside of Top Rank and didn't take it, then I blamed him then, and I blame him now. Do I put like all the onus or all the blame on him? No, because that's never been impassable barrier when there's been cross promotion. I mean, most of the biggest fights that we've had, like even last year, Fury and Wilder, were cross promotional fights. That's never been as big a barrier as it was in recent history, and it started with AJ and is being perpetrated even more by Errol Spence and his fans. Period. With no reason, with no real good reason. At the end of the day, I mean, I still stand by the fact that I don't think Errol Spence is the big deal, and I don't think Bud Crawford is a big deal. Their only big fight from the time that they've come into 147 till now, their only big fight was to fight each other. Maybe Pacquiao would have been a big fight for one of them early on. I mean, if they could have caught him 4 years ago, 5 years ago, then yeah. But them against each other has been their potentially biggest match for over half a decade, and we're not getting it. We're not getting it. Then you got to ask yourself why. I mean, do you want to take as an Errol Spence fan, do you want to take a moral high road and say, oh, well, he wanted to go into the negotiating table with Bud Crawford when he had 3 belts? Really? I mean, is that what the hill you want to die on? I mean, currently, right now, Errol Spence is 31 years old. Bud Crawford is 34 years old, if I remember correctly. Like, when the fuck are we gonna get this fight? When they're 33 and 37, 36, or and we could have had this fight 3 times. I've always said this. Now we maybe may get it once. Or if you ride with my notion that we're not gonna get this fight, news like today's or last night's makes it more convincing. We're not gonna get this fight. And a lot of people that want to take a centrist approach and oh well, that's the business, and this is what it is. We're not getting the fight. We're still not getting the fight. So I mean, we could paint it however you want. I mean, has the boxing business been such a detriment for a fight that's really not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things? Has the boxing business gotten in the way of a fight this hard? Has one person within this discussion, as far as between the two fighters, Errol Spence and Bud Crawford, has one person been as evasive against a fighter who's pretty comparable in talent? It's not like Bud Crawford is killing dudes and Errol Spence isn't. Though I think Bud would win that fight, sure. But it's not like there's a big disparity in talent. But has there ever been such evasive actions from a boxer to not fight another boxer who's pulling in probably just as much money as he is? I mean, Errol Spence puts butts in seats. When does this matter ever? Except with Anthony Joshua fans, circa 2018. And at least Anthony Joshua fans circa 2018 had a reason to use the butts and seats excuse, which Errol Spence doesn't do much of anyway. Anthony Joshua was selling out stadiums, and I'm the biggest Anthony Joshua hater, when it comes to his evasive actions. But y'all acting like Errol Spence is selling shit out on the regular. His biggest performance economically was against Mikey Garcia, another in the list of fights that we didn't want Errol Spence to fight. Mikey Garcia coming up in weight to fight Errol Spence, who's supposed to be the illest welterweight in the world. Mikey Garcia who's been ducking Bud Crawford his whole career, regardless of the weight. But Errol Spence got to rush and fight him because he has to teach him a lesson. Oh, Mikey, if he wants it, he got to give it to him. Like, yeah, what? Even back then, y'all Errol Spence fans were tripping. During the Mikey Garcia, he got to fight Mikey Garcia days. Even back then, y'all were tripping. And when the fuck was that? Let me look it up. 2019. Fight's a useless fight. 2019, March, early 2019, March. And people been co-signing since then. Oh, well, but, he was on Top Rank. He was on the road. Like, what? What? Like, getting in the way of good fights, period. Delaying shit. A pandemic could shut this shit down for another year. What then? What if Errol Spence is the victor of this fight, and he got to fight a mandatory right after? What then? Because I remember a lot of these same channels before were pissed off when Anthony Joshua was on his quest to collect belts, which I was adamantly opposed to the fact that Anthony Joshua was fighting anybody besides Wilder. I hated it. I hated the notion. Regardless of whether it made business sense at the end of the day, it wasn't the Anthony Joshua fight. I mean, it wasn't Anthony Joshua versus Wilder. And I remember a lot of these same channels were hating on it, as was I. And that was for higher stakes. I mean, literally back then, Anthony Joshua was selling out stadiums. This was if you look up from Anthony Joshua's fights to basically from 2015, 30th of May, 2015, O2 Arena, Manchester Arena, Wembley, Principality Stadium in Wales, Wales again, Wembley, MSG, you know, Saudi Arabia, SSC Arena. I don't know what the hell it is. Tottenham Hotspur when he lost to Usyk. Like, I mean, like, even like it's been a while that he was selling out stadiums where he could literally use the butts and seats excuse that like a lot of these cats do now. Like, what butts is it, like in seats like is Errol Spence throwing up? Like, you know, that he could barely sell a stadium in Texas with the help of Mikey Garcia, a Mexican. With the fact that he's bringing in diminishing results against Porter, he sold less than he did with Mikey Garcia. Against Danny Garcia, he sold less than he did with Porter. And I mean, do you want to argue that Danny Garcia, who hadn't had that many losses at that time, brought a contingent of Puerto Rican fans with him or Philly fans? Yet still, you know, two opposing coasts, two opposing markets in Philadelphia and Texas. Like, was that a fight that sold magnificently? Like a historic fight, like tickets wise or pay-per-views? No, it did 250 pay-per-views. And it didn't do any records, stadiums, or, you know, these are basketball stadium fights. They're not that big of a deal. But literally, I mean, like, the Errol Spence fan base has been making excuses for Errol Spence fighting anyone but Bud since 2018, at least, or yeah, pretty much 2018. And now it's where it's really culminating, like, or now things are coming at its apex, where a lot of these channels that are on the defensive when it comes to shying away from criticizing a fighter they like and Errol Spence, now they're really looking pathetic as far as what their content, the content they're putting out, the excuses they're making, how far and above, like, and beyond their own fight is making them look. These same channels that were screeching when Anthony Joshua was doing the same shit. In fact, Anthony Joshua was doing less egregious evasive acts, because during that time when the Anthony Joshua Deontay Wilder fight was a possibility, for the most part, like the only fight that Anthony Joshua took that people were saying that was unnecessary was Povetkin. And if I remember correctly, Takam was a fill-in for or either Takam or Povetkin were just one of those was a fill-in fight. The other was a mandatory, if I remember correctly, or some sort of obligation. Errol Spence has taken two of those fights in this time frame. Danny Garcia was for nothing. Mikey Garcia for nothing. But a lot of these same people, like that were screeching about Anthony Joshua fighting anybody but Wilder, and I was one of those people. But a lot of those same people today, I mean, for a fight that's a lot less significant, you know, find it very, very hard, like, to criticize Errol Spence at this stage of the game. I mean, we've all aged 6 years, maybe, like 7 years by the time they'll fight. For what? Like, what buildup is this gonna do? Like, what other accolade with Bud Crawford fighting whoever the fuck next, or Errol Spence beating Ugas? Like, what more is that gonna bring to their next fight? Dick. It's not gonna do shit for their next fight. It's not gonna make it sell any more or any less. No one cares. No one's cared since the beginning, whether it was for all the belts or none of the belts. No one cared. If you want to pull casuals into the sport, no one's gonna give a shit like about the belts. Like, what's that gonna add as far as pay-per-view sales? 15,000, maybe. The fact that you're fighting for 3 belts or 4 belts rather than 3. But it's Errol Spence using every bitch ass excuse to not fight Bud. Anything to not fight Bud. And I was doing my little march around as far as the channels today. I mean, and the you had a lot of the atypical responses. Like I mean, like some of them were saying that Errol Spence wasn't about to negotiate with no free agent. You know, Bud stupid for leaving for leaving Top Rank before negotiating with Errol Spence. Like what? Like when did like new like they're inventing new barriers that look 100 times more pathetic than what AJ's fans were doing when they were building barriers so that AJ didn't have to fight Wilder. And the bad thing is that, like, for the most part, people that are Errol Spence fanboys actually know a little boxing. These channels that like are repulsive now. It's not because they don't know boxing. Like I didn't lose faith in them all of a sudden because they're watching some other shit rather than boxing, and like their boxing acumen is waning or some shit. Every one of those channels that like has disgusted me lately knows probably a ton more than boxing than I do. That's the disgusting part. Like they act blind when Errol Spence has been ducking the effort for over 6 years. Like what the hell are we waiting on? I remember when this argument really started getting hot. Like because it's been like every year that passes, it's like, oh well, next year they're gonna fight, like, you know, it's a guarantee. When this argument first started, or this debate started first getting hot, it was going into saying like initially, oh well, you know, they're gonna fight by 2020 no matter what. So like, yo, we're about to cross into 2022, my people. What the fuck? Like, how long do we gotta wait? And if Bud takes a L or L takes a L, like, I mean, like, and I mean, like, you know, when it comes to Wilder, I mean, Wilder at this stage is what, 36? You know, and already, I mean, and I think he fought a better fight than I anticipated against Fury this last time out. But already you could see a diminishing skill set. Maybe not so much the power, but I mean, like physically, like how he's holding up, how he's moving around. And I think that the physical aspects of his last training camp were on point. You know, I disagree with the fact that he brought Malik Scott in, but whatever. But age catches up to you. So I mean, like it would be like the equivalent of Joshua and Wilder fighting now. Like, I mean, it's not even that significant, honestly. Like, even Anthony Joshua versus Wilder now would be a way bigger fight, like economically than Bud Spence. I've never, from the beginning of this argument, have seen any reason as to why this fight's being held up so much. None of it makes sense to me. Zero. But you got people here online that fucking come on, make content, like fucking making it seem as there's this big divide, and like there's one guy in this argument that's like fucking being evasive. That's been evasive. Name me one time where he's been combative, or even in their interactions face to face. You see Errol Spence buckling up, trying to instigate a argument with somebody else in Terrence's camp while they're face to face, saying that he's going to go the easy route. You know, and when have you seen the level of avoidance or cowardice, like to fight one dude from guys that are really not significant like that at the end of the day. When have you seen a worse case of avoidance as you have seen with Errol Spence? Errol Spence orally in an interview said that he's trying to age Bud Crawford out. What fighter says that? I mean, you may think that. I mean, like, all right, whatever. If that's your game plan behind the scenes, how many fighters have broke down and said, well, I'm going to try to age him out? How many fighters say, well, I'm going to go the easy route? Anthony Joshua didn't say he was going to go the easy route when he was chasing these belts that nobody wanted him to chase, like Parker or. I mean, you knew that was the game plan. I mean, in my heart of hearts, I think that Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua had a conversation. I think Anthony Joshua let him know, like, listen, like, I ain't ready for Wilder. And then Hearn probably fill in the blanks afterwards. Like, all right, like fucking not gonna make you look like a pussy, but you're not gonna have that fight. But I think that's been the scheme, like for Errol from jump. And he's actually telling you what it is. He's telling you, like, I'm gonna go the easy route and fight Porter. Another fight nobody wanted him to fight. My bad. What about Bud fans? Now let me know. How come Crawford can't take what Errol offered him? I mean, at the end of the day, like, I hope in my heart of hearts that, like, as far as like this goes, like, how come Crawford can't take what Errol's offered him? I don't like whether that's a fair deal or whatever. Like, it's not up to me. But I think that in comparing it to like the Wilder AJ situation, when Wilder thought that he was being disrespected by way of the offers that were being sent to him, he put his foot down and said, well, I'm not going to take less than 50-50 now. Like, that's it. Y'all fucking around. Now, Errol Spence to come out of his mouth and say the 60-40 shit off the rip to your rival, I mean, I would see, like, in Bud's case, why he would put his foot down also and say, fuck this dude. I'm not going to take anything less from him. Like, fuck you think. And the thing is that AJ was a way bigger deal than what Wilder was in comparisons to the disparity between Bud Crawford and Errol Spence. I think there is no disparity. And we're going to see that play out right now. We're going to see that soon. Right around the corner. Whenever Errol Spence and Ugas fight, whether it's March or April, a year and a half of Errol Spence out the ring, we're going to see how those numbers do. And that's for belts. We're unifying. Oh, God, we can't. We unifying is the same across the board. One unification is the same as the other. No need to fight, Bud. Well, we'll see how good these numbers do between Ugas and Errol Spence. Because I'm going to make a prediction right now. They're not going to crack 200,000. You had Porter, who has a lot more appeal, who has the ability to speak English, who was also fighting for a belt against Errol Spence. And they did supposedly 300,000. Now, what's Ugas going to do? When now I think a lot of people are getting the sense that, listen, Errol Spence is the big reason as to why they're holding this up. Or people may also be thinking too, like, Bud Crawford is the side holding this up, and or both of them are holding it up. So, in that sense, then let's not buy any of their fights. I think that is going to have an effect on Errol Spence's next pay-per-view performance, guaranteed. In addition to the fact that it's a shitty ass fight. You got somebody who lost to Iman, like to fucking Porter, who just lost to Bud Crawford and who's already lost to Spence. A guy that doesn't speak English and nobody really gives a shit about, won the belt through a vacancy. Like, there's going to be no bleed over from the fact that Ugas beat Canelo, Pacquiao, there's gonna be no bleed over of people that are interested in watching Ugas's next fights because he's beaten washed up Pacquiao. I think most people didn't chalk it up as like Ugas was a big deal because they only have to use their eyes and research his record. He already has losses. I think a lot of people chalk that up to the logic that Pacquiao was way past his prime. Let me see. The easy route was to make money and collect belts. If Crawford don't want to play ball, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, let's say if in your estimation, if Crawford didn't play ball, but is Errol Spence playing ball? Like, what's he doing like to bring this fight forward? Dick, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. What has anybody from the PBC roster done to push a fight forward against Bud Crawford? Dick, absolutely nothing. Zero. And I do predict that this 200K sold by Ugas is going to come into fruition. You know, I think it's going to be another victim of Team Stream. Boxing burglars. We ain't paying for this shit no more. But I'm hoping, and I think it's going to come into fruition that this fight does sub 150. And what were Bud's numbers last time out? Some people say 190, some people say 130. Frankly, I don't give a shit. They're not putting up 500s and 400, like, you know, even 400s. And the fact of the matter is that there's no fucking fight that Errol Spence could have that's going to sell 400,000 outside of Bud Crawford or Canelo. Do you want to see a Canelo match against Errol Spence? I know a lot of y'all would. I think a lot of y'all would take the moral victory for your boy getting his head detached by anyone but Bud Crawford. Like, where's the what? I don't know how the people's where's people hate for Crawford comes from. And unfortunately, I mean, it seems like a lot of his hate comes from black boxing fans. Like, what it is, bro? Like, what the dude do to you? Most of the content creators that hate on Bud, like across the board, like what it is, like what the hell, like what did Bud do to y'all? Like what he hasn't shown, like in the ring, or as far as like him going after competition. And then you got to ask yourself too, what has that top competition done to try to fight Bud? And the answer to that has always been zero, nothing. I mean, unless you want to pull up some shit where Danny Garcia called him out and like put his foot down, like, oh, get me that fight. Like, where was it where Porter put his foot down and wanted to get that fight pre-belt? Like, you could even go pre-belt, Porter. It was a miracle that Porter broke down and fought Bud Crawford this last time out. When has Keith Thurman said anything regarding Bud Crawford and fighting him? When has anybody at PBC? Zero. Now you're getting to the point where I mean, the rumor is that certain channels are putting out fake rumors or fake call outs, like when it comes to Bud. Like, for what? Like, what's the benefit? Y'all teaming up for that? Y'all scheming up for that? Is that what we're doing now? Like, to make fake rumors or fake call outs? That's how we're getting down now? And look at how over the top the fan group from one fighter is what depths they're going to right now. How many of these channels are clearing out all opposite, like or any dissenting voices that don't agree with Errol Spence's evasiveness? How many of them are clearing dudes out, like, or from their chats, and they just want that echo chamber. They want a bunch of people that are going to repeat any points that have zero like that give zero credit to Bud, and don't paint Errol in a bad light. I mean, when you're putting out fake rumors, I mean, or fake callouts as a content creator or content creators, I mean, what other schemes have they been doing all these years? Why is it that they don't? They find it so hard to criticize Errol all these years? Why is it that they get so butthurt on their own channels if you bring up any points to do with any opposition of Errol Spence's moves or anything giving Bud Crawford credit? Why is it that they get so butthurt when you go to a lot of these channels all these years? Especially now, though. Why is it that a lot of these channels were getting so strung up on that stuff? Could that have been happening behind the scenes for many years? I mean, I wouldn't put it past anybody. I mean, when you come with a bummy ass plan, like, with people that are good at making content, I think I'm a shit content creator. I'm talking about people that I think are fantastic content creators and that know a lot of boxing. When they relegate to fucking putting fake rumors out, I mean, like, do you think that they're gonna be critical? Like, if Errol Spence never fights Bud Crawford, don't wait on it. Because I'm telling you right now, I mean, like, go to any of these favorite channels, go look at their history, see when have they ever been critical of Errol Spence throughout any of this process. I mean, because at the end of the day, whether you pick it's Errol Spence being evasive or Bud Crawford being more evasive, one more than the other, one way more than the other, at the end of the day, we haven't had this fight. 6 years almost. We're not getting any closer. So both fighters got to take some blame. But when have you seen any of these other content creators that are ingesting anything that's coming out the nuts of Errol? When have you seen them be critical like of Errol throughout this process? That's been over half a decade. Never. It never's happened. And you know how I know this? Because I fucked with all of them. I still fuck with them. At the end of the day, I got no problems with nobody. It's just extremely frustrating. I mean, and if they did right, then you know what? Like fucking then we're now I got company amongst other people that want the right thing. I don't need a fiscal victory for either fighter. I don't care if they make a buck. Period. I mean, like, but what's embarrassing, I mean, in my eyes, is and like why a lot of these channels have disenfranchised me is because they were way on the other side of this argument when it came to Anthony Joshua and Wilder. Period. Every one of these matches, it wasn't like they were cheering on the fact that Anthony Joshua was going to fight Joseph Parker for a belt. Not a one of them. Not one of them was cheering that shit on when it was happening. I mean, is Povetkin a comparable to like Anthony Joshua fighting? Anthony Joshua fighting Povetkin, is that comparable to Errol Spence fighting Danny Garcia, wasting his time doing that shit? Or with or fighting Mikey Garcia, wasting our time with that shit and charging us for the benefit? And outside of a few fights, like Errol Spence's resume is ass cheeks. Ass cheeks. Outside of a few fights that were only afforded to him because he was on PBC, and you can't fight welterweights on PBC unless you're on PBC. Errol Spence has fought Danny Garcia. Nobody wanted that fight. Sean Porter for a belt. Not too much fanfare. Mikey Garcia, nobody wanted that fight. Then you're going down to Carlos Ocampo, Lamont Peterson, Kell Brook, who came off of a eye injury against Golovkin, Leonard Bundu, Chris Algieri, Barrera. So where are we? What are the names of that? Phil Greco, Chris Van Heerden. Like, come on. Like, what is it there that's a world class? There's not a world class name in that resume. Most of those guys were already beat when they fought Errol Spence. Besides Mikey Garcia, a lightweight. Like, what is it? What is it that like you guys are so defensive of this one guy? Like, you guys act like y'all raised him or some shit. Like, he's your little brother or some shit. Like, fucking, like, yo, like, let the man fight, bro, or push him in that direction, or do what you do. You know, it'll be we'll go past the laurels of time when they don't fight, and then you pick your side after the fact. Like, you pick your side after the, like, you know, Errol Spence has been launched through another windshield, or like, and he can't walk any longer, or Bud Crawford gets shot again, and then you like, you know, we'll go down in the laurels of history saying you know, oh well, this guy was ducking this guy, well this guy, you know, like, because I mean, and if you want to, like, you know, try to find a comparison like in history, as you know, where these debates are still taking place. Nobody gives a shit about those debates. The fights that didn't happen because of some sort of business shit, nobody's still talking about that shit down the line, like, you know, 50 years later or 20 years later. It's just shit, like, opportunity lost. And as fans, I mean, like, I don't think we should get too invested in one side or another. We should get invested in the fact that they ain't fight. And I mean, like, the hate that Bud is getting from by and large, like, content creators that are also black, like Bud is. I mean, it's beyond distasteful. It borders on disgusting at times. And anybody who got to say, "Oh, you shouldn't be speaking on that," like, bro, like, I'll speak like this, and I'll speak in anybody's face the same exact way. I can speak out whatever the fuck I want. Like, you ain't gonna do shit. Speak like this in front of you. And y'all shitting. I mean, like, and if I can't speak on issues that relate to brothers, y'all shitting on one brother. Y'all destroying, like, you know, like, if it were up to you, bro, like, and it was Bud Crawford that was launched through a vehicle tomorrow, like, I think a lot of these channels would be celebrating. You know, the same way that they give him empty compliments. Oh yeah, well, he's number one pound for pound, but, you know, he got to be realistic. Like, shut up. LOL. Is Spence is ducking Crawford. Is Spence is ducking. Crawford should move on and make the Josh Taylor fight. Spence ain't ever gonna fight him. Nah, I agree with that notion 100%, Mr. Steelwell. I do agree with the notion that Bud Crawford and Spence aren't ever gonna fight. It's just the whole, like, at this point, like, I'm already that bit is cemented into my mind, or my thinking, that we're never gonna get this fight. So, like, I mean, like, honestly, I just want to come online and, like, torch the people who I think stopped us from having that fight as far as YouTube goes, and it was the Errol Spence fans 100% of the way. The happiness that I saw today from a lot of these Errol Spence content creators for the fact that Errol Spence is gonna fight Ugas was repulsive, disgusting. These are the finest channels on YouTube. The reason why I started watching boxing on YouTube, why I found it so interesting. Like, now these same channels are trying to tell me, like, why Errol Spence beating a compo is something that I should give a shit about, or how I don't understand the boxing business. It's ridiculous. Like, when has the boxing business factored so much outside of really recently? Like, when has it been a reason as to why not to have fights? A reason that certain fighters, and Errol Spence will orally tell you, um, is not the reason as to why he's fighting the biggest fight in boxing. Errol Spence already told you out of his mouth, 60-40. Errol Spence already told you out of his mouth that he's going to go the easy route. But God forbid, like, a lot of these content creators bringing that up in anything other than objection. Like, they just rationalize. Oh, well, he's playing 3D chess. Like, what? He's playing chess. Like, chess for what? If right now, as of right now, today, the 19th of December, money is an obstacle and the 60-40 is an obstacle as to why we're not getting this fight. Do you think that Errol Spence is going to bow down from those demands or increase on those demands in terms that are more favorable for him? Now, is that going to get us to get this fight? Or a lot of you guys say, "Oh, we got to bend the knee or kiss the ring." Like, is that like that's going to push us like into this fight faster? I'm only asking. I mean, if I'm wrong, I hope you guys can enlighten me. I just want to know how we're going to get Bud Crawford versus Errol Spence any faster. I mean, logistically, like, we're already putting another 6 months of a buffer. I mean, you count training camps and like time after a fight, you're talking 9 months lost down the line. So what's going to be gained from Errol Spence fighting Ugas when it comes to him fighting the fight that everybody wants to see, which is him against Bud? And to any asshole that says, "Oh, well, he's collecting belts," that's the lamest excuse ever, bro. Collecting belts from Ugas. Nobody gives a shit about what Ugas does. Ugas could jump off a cliff head first tomorrow. How many people would give a shit? Whose last names ain't Ugas? The only people who would give a shit are the Errol Spence wifey club that's online. Like they'd be the only ones lamenting because like that excuse can't be used. Or Errol Spence trying to fast track against some European welterweight. We haven't heard if God forbid something did happen to Ugas, they'd be the only ones crying about it. Be great if karma bites Spence and Ugas does him. I mean, yeah, it would. I wouldn't mind it. I mean, like I said, I'm very candid about where I was with the Wilder AJ debate, and there was some joy in the fact that AJ lost to Ruiz, but at the end of the day, I mean, like we still haven't got the AJ Wilder fight, and we're not gonna get it. I mean, and even if we do, it lost all of its luster. I mean, like that's more of a I mean, and even in that case, I mean, like, Ruiz is kind of like this pudgy, like Mexican heavyweight. First time it ever happened, like, Ugas beating Spence, and then having to talk 2 or 3 times the following year through a translator. I mean, it just doesn't have the allure for me. Even though I mean, like, there would be a little bit of happiness because of I could throw it in other YouTubers' faces for me. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, I get very concerned of where this sport is headed. The fact, like, I see Jake Paul fighting a UFC guy this weekend with a packed house and like the crowd bumping, and that scares me. Pretty soon, in a span of 5 years, I mean, a lot of these boxers are going to be holding out for celebrity fights, and it's because like what the fan bases are doing. Anything could be justified by using money as an excuse. I think that's terrible. And the fact that you feel like you're falling out of favor with one faction or another, like because you're critical of a fighter's movements. I mean, it's stupid. I'd rather not be cool with anybody and be able to speak candidly on this. You know, there's no time to be a centrist with issues like these. I mean, at the end of the day, boxers box, and we want them to fight certain people. We don't want to see a boxer fight a fucking kangaroo. I don't care what a boxer does outside of the ring. Zero. If he makes a lot of money, good for him. If he blows all his money, you fucked up. Who cares? My life goes on. My only entertainment that they could provide me is what they do in the ring for 12 rounds. Hopefully. Outside of that, like all these debates that we're getting at each other's heads for, like they're stupid. And it's not like I'm going after the Errol's fan base because no matter what, I was gonna go after Errol's fan base. I was a bigger Errol Spence fan than I was a Bud Crawford fan a couple of years ago. It is what it is, though. I could pivot. Wilder is my favorite fighter. I've been very critical of Wilder. Not like vague criticism or like I've been just as critical of Wilder as most of the biggest Wilder hater fans channels on certain when it was merited. But he's still my favorite fighter. He's still the only fighter that I've bought pay-per-views in the last like 5 years for. And it's not something I do all the time. And it's not, I may never buy another pay-per-view again. I'm telling you guys right now. But I think you guys should join the mob along with me and stop paying for these fights too. It's not hard. I mean, like, you know, it is streaming it off your phone and putting it to your TV. Like, you know, does that suck? Yeah. I mean, like, you know, just put your phone on do not disturb so you don't get text messages and get in trouble with the wife. And find any of those sites, StreamYard or not StreamYard, Crackstream or VIP Sports or any of these other websites, and stream these fights for free. And I think a lot of people are going to change heart or change position as far as Errol Spence goes, fighting Ugas, because they know that it's not a Bud fight. So I think that, you know, you guys should put that in action. You guys shouldn't buy this fight. Don't buy any fight. But definitely, I mean, if you're on the fence, like whether like to buy Errol Spence's fight, don't do it. Don't do it. We're not any closer to this fight. We're not gonna get any closer. They're gonna throw a mandatory right after Ugas or Errol Spence wins this next match. You're gonna wait more time. If you pay even a dime of your $75 pay-per-view, if one dime of that goes towards the post-fight speech in the lead up to Bud Crawford, Errol Spence, don't waste your time. Errol Spence has never called out Bud Crawford in one of his post-fights. So why bother? Now, if that was the reason why you were going to buy this fight, then don't buy it. I wish I knew a little bit of a computer, whatever, so I could do I could show it somehow, but who cares? Who cares about these fights? I mean, from now on, if I do any streams during fights, it's going to be the fact my success and failures or my successes of pilfering these pay-per-views. I'll call a fight if I have to, and if the stream knocks off a round or two, like because I'm choosing not to pay for the fight, I think the bigger victory in that is that I didn't pay for the fight. But I'm going to end this now. I mean, like, I want to thank you guys for coming through, as always. I mean, I wish you guys would comment more. But Jed Steelwell, like, thank you for coming through. Michael Johnson, Boxing Talking More. I mean, if you guys could, please subscribe or show these brothers for showing me some love. But with that, I'm out. Free the real. Oh, and rest in peace, my boy, somebody I grew up with, Gange, died yesterday. So rest in peace, Miguel Disla. Gone too soon, man. Good kid too. But let me know you guys have anyone to anything to contribute to this after the fact. I mean, like, even if it's hate, much love for even showing up and hearing my stupid ass talk. But with that, I'm out. Peace.